Hello you beauties, welcome back to my second channel, welcome back to Jack in the Books. I'm Jack, these are the books! So after a month of travelling to Cambodia, to Morocco, to Wales, I have finally made it back to Paris and I've basically been a complete hermit for the last couple days. Firstly because I accidentally forgot my camera battery charger and so I haven't been able to film anyway, but I went and bought one yesterday, so we're back. But also because I was so shattered after a month of being all over the place that I just needed to cocoon myself and fester for a little bit. And I read a few books, but I'm filming again. We're back, baby. So you know how the fashion bloggers, the fashion vloggers have their capsule wardrobes, right? I have a capsule bookcase, basically because when I moved to Paris, I've said this loads of times, I brought one suitcase full of clothes and one suitcase full of books. Now, every time I get a chance to go back to the UK, I swap out that suitcase. So, swap out some of the clothes, and then I also swap out all of the books, which I've actually found really useful because it gives me so much focus to really prioritize like one selection of books that I want to get around to, because otherwise, you know what it's like when you just have bookcases full of unread books and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna go and buy new ones instead. Basically, I can't do that because I don't have enough space in my suitcase to add any more books. I don't actually know when the next time I'll be going back to the UK is. Oh, probably at the end of the month because, no, definitely at the end of the month because it's my brother's birthday. It's his 21st, so I basically have until then. I have until the end of this month to try and get through as many of these as possible before I can swap them out for some different ones. So I actually think, this is a tangent, all my videos, literally tangent on tangent, even the tangents have tangents. But what I'm thinking is, so all of these are pretty much, they're quite new releases, they're very contemporary. I have so many books at home that that are just on my bookshelf unread, especially books that I bought during my degree, because during my English degree, we would have to read like 4 or 5 books a week and then also research them and have kind of intelligent thoughts to bring to a seminar or a tutorial or a lecture. So a lot of the books I had to be kind of like economic with my time. And so I didn't read a fair few of the books, so they're all still like just unread on my bookshelf. And so basically, to sum up, what I'm trying to say is, I think next time, instead of buying new books, I might just bring a selection of books that I've had for ages and ages that I haven't got around to reading yet. Like, for example, The Clockwork Orange. I remember getting that for my 18th birthday and being so excited to read it, and I just, for some reason, never have. So, look, that is a completely different point to the one I'm trying to make with this video. I want to show you which books I brought with me this time. So, I'd also like to apologise if you can hear any building work. I don't know how, but somehow, this has happened to me 3 times now. I've moved into an apartment and there's building work happening right outside my window, which is like the worst thing when you make videos from your apartment. These websites, they need to say if there's work going on, but whatever. Another tangent. Look, take a shot every time I go on a tangent and you'll be hammered. These books are actually ordered. I'm so extra, right? I recently digitized my TBR. I made like a Notion page with my TBR. There's a point to this. And so I actually put these on the shelf in order of when I want to read them. So I've actually read up to here, and then these are the next books, but like in order. So when I'm like, oh, what should I read next? This one. Like, it takes the choice out of it, which I think is good for me. I need focus. Because basically I need to read for like A, pleasure, but B, for YouTube videos. So I've kind of like mixed it up a little bit so that I alternate between pleasure and business, you know? Even though obviously the books I read for YouTube are still books that I want to read. So it's the best of both worlds. But anyway, right, let's actually tell you what books I brought with me. Finally. How long into the video are we at this point? Okay, right, so first book that I brought is The Promise by Damon Galgut. I don't have words to express how good this was. I think it's the perfect novel. It won the Man Booker Prize in 2021, which makes perfect sense to me. It deserves it. And this is basically about apartheid in South Africa and it centers on a white family. That's a very crucial detail because the black characters in the novel are completely silenced, they don't have voices, they barely even have identities, and the perspective that we get sort of moves around this family like a camera. So you'll literally go from one person's perspective straight into someone else's, and then like an inanimate object will suddenly be the kind of POV, which I thought was such a fascinating style. And then at the end of the book, Damon Galgut, as the author, kind of interjects and he's like, hey, did you notice that the black family have just been completely silenced this whole time? That's not a spoiler for the plot at all, it's just something to look out for. And it's so brilliantly done. The structure is so interesting because it centers around 4 funerals. Oh, my eye keeps randomly watering. I think it's because this book was emotional. It's actually just because I think I might have hay fever. But anyway, The Promise, highly recommend. I thought that was brilliant. The next book is this one. This is Paradays. This is by Fernanda Melker and translated by Sophie Hughes. It's about these 2 guys who live on a luxury housing complex. One of them is like a little sex pest and he fantasizes about his neighbor, but like to a worrying masochistic extent. And then the other guy is fantasizing about being able to leave his mother's home and to quit his horrible job that he hates, and they basically hatch a quite disturbing plan, and the last 30 pages of this book are electrifying and they just knock the wind out of you. It's absolutely insane. The author writes with a kind of like aggression and it's so extraordinary. I thought this was brilliant, and also this was nominated for the International Booker Prize this year, so bit of a theme going on. Next we have The Bluest Eye by the legend, the icon, Toni Morrison. This was actually her debut novel, and the fact that this is a debut is absurd. It is outrageously good. It's about the tragic and torn life of this one specific black family, and basically the daughter is always fantasizing about having blue eyes. She believes that if she had blue eyes, she would be beautiful. And America's racial history is just completely interwoven into this book. I thought it was awesome. Now for a book that I didn't like, just to buck the trend a little bit. I don't want to tell you too much about these because I'm making a whole video on them, which is coming out on my main channel like literally so soon. But anyway, Meet Earl and the Dying Girl. This was made into a movie. It is about a guy who befriends a girl who is dying of cancer, but the writing style was not really for me. Okay, I need to stop sharing my opinions on the books that I'm literally making videos on, but this is All Boys Aren't Blue. This is a memoir manifesto about growing up black and queer, and this is by George M. Johnson. Super interesting, trying to read more memoirs because they're so fascinating, and I love hearing different people's perspectives. Then we have At Night All Blood is Black. This is a brilliant translation which won last year's International Booker Prize. So there you go. Back with the trend. It's about these 2 soldiers fighting for the French army, but they're originally from Senegal, and one of them is shot and he's dying a really painful death, and he basically asks his friend, please put me out of my misery, like please kill me. And his friend just like cannot bring himself to do it, and it basically is about the repercussions of that decision that he makes, and it is absolutely spellbinding. I'll never ever forget reading this book, and that's all I'm going to say. Nice and cheery, that one. Next, a book that I literally just finished. This is Ragnarok by A.S. Byatt. I thought this was literally so boring. I find Norse mythology really interesting and fascinating, but this for me just wasn't it. I've read a lot of mythological retellings, and this just, for me, isn't up there with one of my favourites. I've read so much better. I thought it was a bit kind of obvious. Like, it's basically about World War II, and then this little girl who's reading about Norse mythology, so she's kind of thinking about Ragnarok, which is like the end of times in Norse mythology, through the lens of World War II. Because basically in Norse mythology, I'm going to really oversimplify this, but bear with me, people believed that when soldiers died, it's because they had been chosen by the gods to help them fight their battles, you know? So it was basically a way that people came to terms with their loved ones dying early deaths in battle. They believed that they had essentially been chosen because they were like the strongest, the greatest of men, usually. And then this girl is basically thinking about this from the perspective of the Second World War. Great concept, but for me, just not executed very well. I thought it was really dull. Sorry. Next we have Mouse. This is a graphic novel, which I'm really, really excited to sink my teeth into. I've been really enjoying graphic novels recently, you know? So there's that. We're now in the territory of books that I haven't yet read. So The next one is this one, When You Call My Name by Tucker Shaw. It's 1990 in New York City. Adam is falling in love for the first time. Ben is leaving home for the last. Drawn by the city's irresistible energy, the boys are swept up into the queer scene, where the potential for life and love seems limitless. But as the shadows of prejudice gather, Ben and Adam discover how their newfound community is facing the looming threat of AIDS, which will touch their lives more closely than they could ever have imagined. I think this is the perfect book to read this Pride Month, so yeah, that's When You Call My Name. When You Call My Name. Next we have Magpie. This is by Elizabeth Day. It's basically about a kind of newly married couple who have a lodger come to live with them. But this lodger seems to know an awful lot about them and she seems very, very comfortable in that house. Almost like she's been there before. So, I'm intrigued to see what happens. I'm like a little bit of the way through this, but I haven't got to the major kind of plot twist, which I know is coming, so that is Magpie. I can't wait to continue with this. Next, we have Death and the Penguin. I bought this at Hay Festival because they had this stand of Ukrainian books, and the profits from those books went to the DEC and their Ukraine humanitarian crisis appeal. So yeah, I've been looking to buy a kind of like Ukrainian classic for a while, and everyone hypes this up a lot, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. It's basically about a guy who is writing obituaries for people kind of like before they've died, and then eventually one of the people that he's writing about does die, and it has a huge impact on his life once his obituary is published. So I think there's a penguin at some point. Let me see, what does this say? Yeah, so he has a pet penguin called Misha, who is already my favourite character. I can't wait to see where this goes, and there will be a video coming very soon. This channel is essentially like the spoilers for my main channel. This is A Man Called Over. Right, I did start this book, and then I went away and I left it behind. I forgot to take it with me, and so I stopped reading it, obviously, and moved on to other things. So, I will get back to this. People literally love this book so much that I get DMs on Instagram every day of people being like, where's the review? Why have you not finished this book yet? And it's basically because I left it behind, I forgot it. It was meant to go in my hand luggage when I went to Cambodia, but I left it on the side in my house. So this is about this grumpy, cantankerous old man who's like a stickler for rules, and he's just kind of charming. Like, even though he's just like a Karen, you can't help but kind of love him. And I mean, I've only read the first tiny little bit. I'm going to start again from scratch, but I'm very intrigued to see where this goes because I think it's going to be sad. I think this is going to make me cry, so I can't wait. Oh, the next one is a hugely anticipated book. This is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. First and foremost, anyone who uses a Florence and the Machine lyric as the title to their book, I immediately want to be your best friend. So it's been 5 years since the accident that killed the love of her life, and our main character is almost a new person now, an artist with her own studio, living with her ride-or-die friend Jay, who insists it's time for her to ease back into the dating scene. So that's the vibe. I've seen this absolutely everywhere. I think it has only just actually been published. I got sent this ages and ages ago, but I wanted to save it until it was out. Yeah, oh, it came out on 24th of May, 2022. So there you go. The answer was actually literally in my hands. Now, the next book I'm a little embarrassed to tell you about because how many times have I told you I wanted to read this book? So many times! But you know what? In this fine June, I'm finally going to read this book, Cleopatra and Frankenstein. I say it every time. The cover. Can we talk about the cover? It is so stunning. Who designed this? Let's shout them out because it is beautiful. It doesn't say anywhere. Tell me who designed the cover. Joe Thompson, and the painting is by Jill Button. Well, Jill, you did incredibly well, and Joe, I love it. So this is brilliant, and that's all I have to say. I've spoken about it so many times, but the next time you hear me speak about this goddamn book, it will be when I'm giving you a review of it. I swear. I don't know why. You know when there's a book that you are desperate to read, you just somehow don't get around to it. I don't know. I think it's because I assume I'm going to like it, so I'm almost like putting it off. I'm nervous that I won't. Anyways, Next book is Cursed Bunny, which is a collection of Korean short stories. In fact, I think the next few books are all short story collections. We also have My Pen is the Wing of a Bird. I'm not even in the shop. Hello. This is new fiction by Afghan women, which I'm super excited for. Then I brought with me Less, which is a book I've been meaning to get round to for so long. I actually bought this in a charity shop. It was only £2.75, what a bargain. And it won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 2018. Maybe I should do a video on like award-winning fiction since I've got so much of it. Maybe there's an idea there. Maybe the books that I bought to read for pleasure will actually end up being a video. That's the beauty of it. Anyway, Who Says You Can't Run Away From Your Problems? Arthur Less is a failed novelist about to turn 50. A wedding invitation arrives in the post. It is from an ex-boyfriend of 9 years who is engaged to someone else. Dun dun dun! Arthur can't say yes, it would be too awkward. But he also can't say no, it would look like defeat. So he begins to accept the invitations on his desk to half-baked literary events around the world. From France to India, Germany to Japan, Arthur almost falls in love, almost falls to his death, and puts miles between him and the plight he refuses to face. Less is a novel about mishaps, misunderstandings, and the depths of the human heart. How good does that sound? I've also just got back from a literary festival, so I feel like I can't wait to read about that kind of thing and that kind of world, because it's an interesting one for sure. Then we have another short story collection. This is The End of the World is a Cul-de-sac. Title of the year, I think. I also love My Pen is the Wing of a Bird. I think that is also a great title, but The End of the World is a Cul-de-sac is just so brilliantly random that I can't wait to read this. This is by Louise Kennedy, and it's described by The Guardian as a dazzling, heartbreaking debut collection. Some very talented debut authors, huh? Next, we have another short story collection. This is Black Swans by Eve Babbitt. I get, just from like the internet, the vibe that maybe Eve Babbitt writes in a similar way to kind of Joan Didion, and I really love how Joan Didion writes. Wow, the font is quite small in here. My contact lenses could never. This is going to be a glasses jobby. It's a new reissue of Babbitt's collection of 9 stories that look back on the 1980s and early 1990s, decades of dreams, drink, and glimpses of a changing world. Black Swan further celebrates the phenomenon of Eve Babbitt, cementing her reputation as the voice of a generation. There you go. It's like the generation just before mine, because I'm a late 90s baby. Then we have this book, which everyone is talking about, Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason. You know who told me this book is really good? My mother. My mum. She loved this, and I've only heard good things. So this is a book, I think, all about one woman's mental health journey, essentially. And I think the juxtaposition of both sorrow and bliss is going to be really interesting. So the reviews on the front say, I was making a list of all the people I wanted to send it to until I realised that I wanted to send it to everyone I know. What a good review. And then someone else said, jaw-droppingly funny, a masterclass on family, damage, and the bonds of love. As soon as I finished it, I started again. Does that not want to make you just sit down right now and just read the whole thing? Because it does for me. Next, we have this book. This is The View Was Exhausting. This is actually by 2 authors, which is interesting. Last book I read that was by 2 authors was This Is How You Lose the Time War. So, interesting. This is about a couple, I think it's like a fake romance story, and I think it's going to be very similar vibes to like a Taylor Jenkins Reid book, which, to be honest, never disappoints. So, I think this could be really interesting, and I'm intrigued to get around to it. Eventually. I'm hoping that we will. And then another book that is of a similar kind of vein, because that book is all about like a celebrity couple. This is about an influencer. This is Idol by Louise O'Neill, and it's basically about an influencer who writes a blog post about her first kind of like sexual experience, and then the person who she had that experience with writes to her and is like, that isn't how that happened. I don't remember it like that at all. And so it's basically like these 2 people's words against each other. And I think it's going to be fascinating. I'm also just really intrigued to read a book about being an influencer in the influencer world. Next book is The Exhibitionist, and this is shortlisted for the Women's Prize. I think it's being announced literally next week who the winner is. Sorrow and Bliss is also on the shortlist, and oh yeah, I'm listening to Great Circle, which is another one of the nominees, but I'm listening to that as an audiobook. And then my next audiobook that I've got lined up is Detransition Baby by Tori Peters, which I've been meaning to get around to for ages. And it's Pride Month, so I feel like, you know, 'tis the season. So anyway, this is The Exhibitionist by Charlotte Mendelsohn, and the blurb says this: meet the Hanrahan family, gathering for a momentous weekend as famous artist and notorious egoist Ray Hanrahan prepares for a new exhibition of his art. The first in many decades, and one he is sure will burnish his reputation for good. His 3 children will be there: beautiful Leah, always her father's biggest champion, sensitive Patrick, who has finally decided to strike out on his own, and insecure Jess, the youngest, who has her own momentous decision to make. And what of Lucia, Ray's steadfast and selfless wife? She is an artist too, but has always had to put her roles as wife and mother first. What will happen if she decides to change? For Lucia is hiding secrets of her own, and as the weekend unfolds and the exhibition approaches, she must finally make a choice. I hate blurbs that just list every character, but I suppose it's necessary with this one. So it doesn't necessarily, you know how I said some of the other books make me want to literally sit down and read it right this second? I don't get that from this, but I've heard good things, I've heard really good reviews, so that's why it's on the shelf. But it's lowest priority. Do you see what I did there? So there you go, those are the books that I have with me currently. Those are the books that I'm going to be reading very soon, and this is your kind of main channel spoiler of what's to come. You know, people have started commenting on these videos being like, that wasn't a very in-depth review, like that, why did you not review that book? I'm like, because I haven't read it yet, you know? Like, this channel is mostly first impressions. I'll be like unboxing a brand new book that I've never seen before, and someone comments like, that wasn't a very good review. And it's like, dude, I haven't read it yet. What do you want from me? So anyway, if you were expecting reviews of these books, they're coming. But just not in this one. I haven't read them yet. They're sitting here unread. And that's kind of the difference between this channel and my main. It's like this channel is mostly first impressions and plans to read, and then the main channel is like the reading and the reviews. So anyways, all the best, stay in touch, have a wonderful day, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Love ya, bye!